It's the real word. It's the real word. It's the real word. It's the real word.
We on a mission and that's bringing y'all the truth. You know the problem, but we get into the root. The devil watching, yeah, he always on pursuit. But Jesus is our rock, so we shall not be moved. We on a winning team, so we can't lose. We say facts, cause we hitting y'all with proof. Started from the bottom, now we standing on the roof. As God as our witness, we gon' make it to the moon. When you want the truth, the world be hiding it. This the real word, we providing it. We got Ace, BK, Truth, Rick Star, and we plan to make a movie like it's Pixar. We came a long way from the plantation. We just tryna save your souls from damnation. So if you down with the message, tune in every week. It will lead you to the message that you seek.
It's the real word. It's the real word. It's the real word. It's the real word.
The Real Word Season 9, Episode 29. Shout out to everybody who's been watching. Shout out to everybody that has been supporting. Shout out to everybody that's helped us to get thus far. Shout out to all the people that supported all our initiatives that we did this year. And shout out to the people that's going to continue to support us. We got the turkey drive coming up next month in November. And we got the annual toy drive and coat drive coming up as well. Shout out to the Franco-Haitian Federation. They have their gala coming up in December, and they also have their drives going on. So shout out to all the people that's giving back to the community during these difficult times. I got a very familiar face in the house. Introduce yourself.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Happy to be here. It's your boy Ant. You want to talk today, guys?
Okay. And we have a very special guest in the house, new face in the building. Introduce yourself. First time on the platform.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Deana Gaccione. I live in Arizona. I was just explaining to the guys that it's finally cooling off here. It's down to 100 today. Woohoo! We made it through another summer.
We made it.
Yeah, we did. So I'm a mom of 3, and I'm a business owner. I live currently with my youngest daughter. She's 16. She was born with a rare genetic disorder. So we've had a journey, and this year we've seen some major breakthroughs after years of praying and believing and trying things that would help her. And so I'm excited to share our story.
When you say genetic disorder, what are you referring to?
Well, she was born with a condition called Cornelia de Lange syndrome. And it's a very rare genetic disorder. Very few people have it. There's not a whole lot that is known about it. It's just a group of chromosomes that match up with some other kids that are born like that, not too many. And the issues can range from very mild to extremely severe, like children being born in a vegetative state. I found out years into it that 50% of the children born with this are born without limbs. And a large majority of them are born with heart defects. And so, we didn't have any of that. We had plenty of issues, but I just had no idea that it could have been that bad. So I just thank God, that it wasn't worse, and just for all the progress that she's made. So that's what that is.
And you're saying that you draw inspiration from that situation. And what have you done with that energy?
Well, it started out more like a shock. I did not know that there were any issues during pregnancy. Sometimes they can tell with blood work and sonograms and things that something is wrong, but I had no idea till she was born, and it was obvious that something wasn't right. And so the problems were, right at the beginning that, when you're a mom and this happens and they don't know what's going on, at least for me, I just kept believing, okay, she's going to come out of this. It's going to turn around. It's going to get better. Plus, I am a woman of faith. And so I just trusted that, all would be well. We're going to get through this. I just have to, God will leave us and show me what I need to do. But as time went on, the problems just became, more apparent. Eventually, she was diagnosed. And it wasn't for quite some time. She was like 10. when she was finally diagnosed. Prior to that, they could not figure out what was wrong with her, but she just had a lot of deficits. And so early on, we started with all kinds of therapies. You know, you start your kids with speech and occupational therapy and physical therapy, and just, you know, they're just constantly coming over and sending you to specialists. And then she started having seizures, and, you know, you sort of go into like survival mode. So it's a matter of just trying to provide, you know, the best environment you can, trying to figure out how she can learn, you know, managing the symptoms and the issues. And here she's growing year after year, getting bigger and taller, but her brain isn't developing right. So just to give you an idea, in January, she was assessed, and she's 16 years old now, and she tested at kindergarten level. And so we've tried many schools. We tried all the special programs and special schools. Nothing was really a good fit for her, so we ended up just homeschooling her. So she's been homeschooled, and it's the best thing for her. So I do have tutors that come in, and I do have some help. But yeah, at the beginning of the year, I basically had a 16-year-old toddler on my hands. So it's very concerning. She would watch other people. She would observe what people do, and she would want to do these things. But part of her brain didn't function well enough for her to know what was dangerous. You know, she could not regulate. She had no sense of stranger danger. So she would, and I just could not get her to understand. You don't run up to strangers. You don't open the door when the doorbell rings. Just run to people. So I had to have eyes on her 24/7. Just to let you know how bad it had gotten, last year in the middle of the night, I was awakened to like her screaming, and I run outside into the hall, and I can see the garage doors open, and there are headlights. It's like 3 a.m. There are headlights just blaring into my house down the hall, and Jalen's running towards me screaming. Well, I have no idea what happened, but I can see she's okay, and I go to the door, and it's my car. She had taken my keys, gotten up during the night, gone out, opened up the garage door, and backed the car out. And then she got scared and jumped out of the car, and there was the car with the door open, the lights on. It was in neutral, and it was terrifying to think of, you know, what could have happened. What could have happened? And here I was sleeping, and you know, when I was 18, a good friend of mine had a 3-year-old, and he sort of did the same thing. He got into a vehicle, got it out of gear, and jumped out, and it ran over him. So, you know, all these flashes were coming to me, and I really didn't know, you know, what was going to become of us. Really, it was just getting really, really hard.
Wait, so Deana, I think the $1 million question is, like, how are you so comfortable sharing all this with complete strangers?
Well, you know, a few months ago, I wouldn't have been able to do it. I was terrified of speaking in public, or, you know, the recordings on. I mean, that would have been a hard no for me. But like I told you guys in the beginning, we had like some major breakthroughs this year. And when you're a part of this world, you know, this special needs community, you're surrounded with other families and kids, and all of a sudden you're in this world that I never even knew existed. You know, I had 2 other children. I didn't know anything about all of this. And so, you know, I can't help but share. I have to let people know that there's hope. I feel it's an obligation. I want to get the word out to, you know, everybody that I can, because there are so many kids with issues. I'm sure you guys know, family members or friends, kids, it's like an epidemic now. These kids that are being born with all kinds of conditions, you know, mainly autism, and we have just kids, you know, across the board, Down syndrome. Just when they can't diagnose you, they'll just call it the global developmental delay. So there's just this epidemic of kids that just have these.
What do you think? What do you think is causing it? Like, do you think it has something to do with the parents, the diet, or the atmosphere, the food, or what?
Am I really free to tell you what I think?
Yeah, go ahead. I'm asking you.
Okay. Well, so I've had health issues my whole life, and nobody could diagnose me. So I set out on this journey in my early 20s to try to help myself. And so I dove into this world of, natural medicine and nutrition and health, and, my eyes were open to all the dangers, for our health. And that includes what they're putting in the food, how they're growing the food. Oh, and it's so much worse now. The stuff they're putting on the shelves now that is grown in a lab, and they don't have to label it. It's not good. And the farming practices, I'm also a gardener, and the farming practices, they've just depleted the soil, so the food that we are eating has no nutrition. Okay, so you've got that. So when you don't have nutrition and you're carrying a baby, you're developing this baby from a depleted, storehouse already. So kids are being born insufficient to begin with. And then the medical establishment, they've increased the vaccine requirement like 500% since I was a kid. The number of vaccines that are required, by the time a kid starts school, it's just through the roof. And if you ever read the ingredients in those vaccines, you'd have a real clue to what's happening to these kids. Now, that's just my opinion, but that's how I feel.
So you're kind of like a woke white person. How do you feel about that? A woke white person.
Did you say woke?
Yeah, because a lot of people don't like talk about being woke. Like, they don't like talking about things like that. It's touchy subjects,
Well, so I think all the, I think the other people are woke, the ones that are just going for all this and going into it and blindly and doing everything that they're told. Promoting all the agendas. I think that's woke. But if you call me woke, that's good. I mean.
So what would you call yourself then? If you called them woke, what would you call yourself?
Well, I would say I feel like I'm informed, and I don't know if I can give myself a label, but I don't drum, to that beat. I'm not pleased with the way things are moving in the country, and especially in the medical establishment and what I see happening to people. So, and I do have to be very careful, not everybody receives that well. If you don't go along, if you're not part of the club, people can get very hostile. How do you guys feel? Are you getting hostile towards me?
Yeah, what you think?
Absolutely not. I somewhat almost agree with you 100%, but if I could go back a little bit with you before we get even into this, like in the beginning, right, with you and your daughter, can you kind of like take us back and like talk about the challenges in the beginning of like identifying that, okay, there is something wrong? Because, like as a mother, like as a parent myself, I could identify with the feeling of saying, nothing could be wrong with my child. Like, nothing is wrong. Like,
Right.
But at what point do you say, you know what? I have to help here. Like, there is something going on. Like, can you
Right.
take us back to the beginning of that story? Like, how was that challenge for you?
Oh, wow. That is so complex, especially you add in a person of faith, okay? Because then you're praying and you're believing and you're trusting and you're, even beyond what you see. And so, boy, there's this balance, right? You're not in denial. You see what's going on. So, I saw there were issues, but I just had no doubt that we were going to overcome this. There were some supplements or some program or some treatment or something was going to be able to help her, right? And they're not telling me anything differently. They're sending me to all these specialists because they're trying to diagnose her. And I'm just doing what they say. But I've got this little baby here that I'm trying to keep alive and help her to thrive. And then I've got other kids. And then at that time I had a sick husband. So I had my hands full, but I did what they said, because this was my first experience. I guess that's what you do. You go to the specialists, and they would always say they can't find anything. So I never expected them to find anything, because I thought, well, whatever it is, it's going to iron itself out. Okay. So very interesting. You should ask that. This is not something that I share very much, but I will, since you asked. At about 2.5 years old, they did all this genetics testing, and it takes a long time, multiple visits, and then finally you go back and you meet with this neurologist and they give you the results, right? So, I just feel like, it's results day, and this is just one of like 50, appointments that I've had in the last 2 years. It was no big deal for me. I was just going because I was supposed to go. I expected them to say, we don't know what it is, like they always do, what's going on. And in the meantime, I had her in therapies and I had lots going on. I was doing what I could to help her, still believing everything's going to be fine. Well, on this day, this neurologist sat me down and he goes, well, we can't find it. We can't find anything. She doesn't fit into any syndromes. At that time, they had not identified it. So we're just going to diagnose her with global developmental delay. And I'm like, okay, yeah. And so I guess he could see that it didn't really register with me. So this is what that man said to me. He looks me in the eyes and he goes, she's mentally retarded and she's never going to be able to learn. Oh my gosh. Okay, so
wow. I
can never forget that day, because you got to remember, nobody prepared me for anything like that. Her pediatrician didn't say, Deana, they might find blah, 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 or it might be this or that. No, pediatrician wasn't going to say a word. Just go to this specialist, go to that specialist, and I was doing my thing. When he said that, I felt like I got shot in the heart, and I felt like my brain exploded. That's how it felt. I must have looked just shot. I remember I just kind of went numb, and I could see he felt bad. And I said to him, I remember being able to get some words out. I said, but I'm doing all these therapies. And he just said, it's not going to make any difference. Just take her home and love her. That's what he said to me. Mm. So that was a very traumatic moment. As I'm only telling you because you asked.
No, absolutely no. I'm asking like, not only because I want to know, but like for people that are like going through this themselves, that are like in this beginning stage where they're so lost and they don't know what's going on. I feel like it's important for them to like hear the story from someone who's went through it, even though it was 16 years ago, to know that they will be okay. Because even though you went through that, 16 years later, you're still here and you're smiling and you're able to tell your story. So hopefully they could draw inspiration from that themselves. So that's really why I asked.
Well, that's a good point, Anthony. You're very insightful, because at the time, 16 years ago, the way I felt was, I'm not going to make it. I can't live through this. I can't. Like, Lord, I can't. And I just remember the Lord impressing upon me, you will. And I'm going to be with you every step of the way. You will. And I'm like, no, Lord, how long, how long is it going to be like this? And because I still believe things were going to change. I couldn't accept it at the time. So, I continued. Nothing really changed. Now but this thing in my mind, right? Now I had this battle in my mind. I mean, he told me, take her home and love her. Nothing's ever going to help her. Now, if I had accepted that, my daughter would not be where she is today, okay? So I refused to believe that. I just knew, even without faith or anything else back then, the brain can change. The more you challenge the brain, when you learn new things, it causes synapses and changes and growth. Even with 9-year-old stroke patients, the brain, it's neuroplasticity, right? So for that guy to tell me that, it was just wrong. So,
but I mean, anyway. that was sort of going to be my next question, like, because
was he wrong?
Yeah, was he wrong? Like, was he trying to give you a shock of reality, or was he frustrated, like with his profession himself at that point, that he had to break it down to you? And for him, it's just like, let me just put it in the most basic form. Like, I wish we had him here, we could ask him that question, but it's so interesting. Like, I understand how traumatic it could be for him to just tell it to you like that. But from his perspective, I would love to hear it. Like, what was he thinking?
Well, I can tell you, he looked at me. I told you, he could tell I wasn't understanding what he was saying. He said she has global developmental delay. I'm like, okay, what's that? Okay. And he's like, this. So he's like, she's not getting it. And then he said that. So I know in his heart, he thought he was doing the best thing. Right? He thought he was doing the best thing. Like I needed that shock of reality. And maybe he thought that was true, that she could never learn. I find that really hard to believe because, I mean, everybody knows that if you just keep working, you just keep working at it, there's going to be improvement. You don't know how far they can go, but why would you not even try? I don't understand that. But he was an older doctor. I think he might have been old school, and I'm sure he's not practicing anymore. He's old. But anyway, so I just kind of had to get my own, grounding and just move forward. And just continue to do all that I did, which was anything I heard about, we tried, any therapies, any programs, supplements, anything that helped anybody else. I was on all the groups, and anything I saw was helping or working, we did it. We anything and everything. And some things helped some, and but mostly not until this year.
I think even with that word, retarded, pardon me, they don't even want to say that word anymore because of, the stigmas attached. Growing up, kids used to call each other dad all the time.
Absolutely.
And then,
true.
like, I can say my personal experience wasn't until I first moved to Canarsie. I moved to Canarsie at the age of 10. And that school had, it's like within our school was a separate school for kids that had special developmental disabilities. And at the time, they had another name for them, but I didn't know the name at first. So coming from where I came from, the school I came from was like in a low-income neighborhood because I used to live in Bushwick. So that school didn't accommodate handicapped kids. That was the term handicap. I didn't know the term handicap until I was 10 years old, ironically. So when I came in contact with the kids that were handicapped or had developmental disabilities, it scared me as a 10-year-old, like as wild as it may sound, because when the first kid I saw was a kid on crutches, like they walked up to me on crutches, but their feet was kind of dragging, and so they had to, and then they weren't able to speak, so they just yelled things at me, and as a 10-year-old, I was startled. I was like, oh, I didn't know what to do, and then they had to explain it to me, and then when I looked around, I saw like there was a whole class of kids that had the special needs, and they had their own para sometimes, like their own teacher assistant just for each child, and so that's when I became more aware of it. So exactly what you said when you first explained the global
developmental disorder.
Yeah, the global. We had no idea what you was talking about until you said what the doctor said. To be honest, we had no idea what you were saying.
Okay, well, I really didn't know what he was saying either.
Yeah.
Okay, so, I mean, it inferred to me delay. Okay, she's delayed, but she'll catch up, right? And if delay just means delay, right? But he told me no, she never will, right? So that's.
Oh.
So I guess he felt he had to explain it to me, and you're right. Nobody uses those words. Nobody. I mean, it's totally not acceptable anymore, But
that's why when you first explained your story, we thought that it was a tragic accident. I thought it was a tragic accident that might have happened to your child at first.
Oh.
I didn't really understand, and then when you said it, I was like, okay, like she didn't fully develop, and then you said that she has a kindergarten brain at 16. Then I understood, but kindergartners are kind of smart because my kid is in kindergarten. She's very smart.
Yes. Oh yeah. Very.
But for a 16-year-old, yeah. She could be very. It's amazing. So super smart in some areas, especially ways to get her way and ways to sneak things. How smart they are, right? They're so super smart when it comes to stuff like that, right? But it was there were parts of her brain that were not functioning well, and
I was beginning to believe that, maybe things weren't going to turn out the way that I thought they were back then. But nonetheless, I kept doing everything that came down the pike and trying, and still in all the therapies and all this. And then last year, in December, we're almost going on a year, somebody sent me some information about something new that I hadn't heard of it. I wondered why I hadn't seen it, because I stay on top of these things, but it had to do with stem cells. And I did know, that stem cells were very important. Some people take their kids out of the country for stem cell injections.
Wow.
It's very, very costly.
Sheesh.
It's like, I knew one lady that was going to Panama, $30,000 a trip to get her kid, stem cells. They were other people's stem cells, the questionable sourced type, but this was the only.
What's going on?
I mean, at that point, when your kid is sick, like you feel like you have to do whatever, whatever you have to do. Like, yeah.
I don't judge anybody for that, because if I thought it would have helped my daughter, and if I could have afforded it, I probably would have too. I mean, when it comes to your kids, you'll do what you have to do. So, so this old friend of mine I hadn't seen in like 15 years, she sent something in Messenger, probably sent it to all her friends, right? It was not really personal, just this information. And I checked it out, got my attention. I Googled it just to try to get some more information. And the first thing that came up was a YouTube video from a mom. And she had a 16-year-old nonverbal autistic son who this was the one that had been going to Panama for stem cell therapy, and there had been no change for him. They'd gone 4 times. And
wait, so each is $30,000? 3, 6 months? So 120,000, huh?
She was going twice a year, and she said that she was planning to go twice a year. She was going to keep doing it, even though she wasn't seeing any results, because there's no other hope. Like, this might kick in someday, like it was the only hope she had. I mean, we just don't have any options. It's medications, mainly medications to sedate them. My daughter has always had very severe ADHD, very severe. Her body just constantly twitched and moved. Even during sleep, her body moved. A therapist once said to me, imagine driving a car going 100 miles an hour with no brakes. She said, that's Jalen's brain. And that's how she acted. I mean, just zipping around. You couldn't get her attention. She couldn't focus. She'd just be knocking things over. I never wanted her to hold a glass. She had to have cups. I never wanted her to clear her plate because she just had no coordination. She dropped things. I mean, I was just constantly just running after her.
Wait, at what age? At what age?
Until this year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, nonstop. I mean, my whole life was just, it had to have eyes on her. If somebody wasn't looking, she took that as her opportunity to go get into the knife drawer, or, go rumble around through medicine or anything, go find the car keys. Like, she gravitated towards things that she knew she wasn't supposed to do.
Let me ask you a question, right? But physically, say for example, I never knew any of this about your daughter, and I've seen her for the very first time. Would I be able to tell any of this?
You would know something was different. She looks, currently she's maturing now. Since we started this stuff and all these changes took place, she actually grew. And her doctor said, I thought her growth plates were closed. Girls aren't supposed to grow at 16. And she did. She grew another inch. So she's actually developing now. She's looking more mature. She's putting on weight. But prior, December of last year, she looked like maybe an 11-year-old, just like a little girl, she acted like one. At 16? Younger.
At 16, you're saying, or at 15?
Yeah, 16.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, as in, like, she looked as if she didn't go through puberty?
Right. Like she maybe even 10, maybe 9. I'm just, she hadn't developed. She just looked very, very young, and she looked like maybe a 9 or 10-year-old. She didn't look like a teenager.
So about if she have good genes, because you seem to have good genes. You're a pretty lady, so.
Well, thank you for that. I mean, she's a pretty girl. She just looked very, very immature. It's like her development had stopped. And so her brain development had certainly stopped way, way back. She was more like, in some respects, she was kind of like a 4-year-old. And in probably the best respect, she was more like an 8-year-old.
Okay.
This was, this time last year.
What you think about?
So you.
No, but I want you to pretty much talk more a little bit about the new breakthroughs that you guys are going through this year. Like you mentioned stem cell a little bit. Like are you going through that right now? You said that she's growing. Like you said, since we started doing this stuff. Like talk a little bit about this stuff for us, please, if you may.
Okay, sure. So this friend sent me that information, and it just said activate your own body stem cells. And I'm like, what's this? How come I'm seeing this, right? And so what they are these little patches that you wear. Let's see. No, I don't think you can see any right now. But there are these little patches that you wear. They're for adults too. They're for everybody. And they're phototherapy patches. And so, all right, our bodies emit light. So if you've ever seen a movie with night vision goggles, you're looking out in the dark and you see there's a body out there, a person or an animal, because you see the red, right? Mm-hmm. That's a light that is coming from our bodies. We all emit this light. We can't see it with the naked eye. And so it's a low-grade infrared light. And so with these little patches reflect a particular wavelength of light back under your skin, and it elevates a certain peptide that then activates your body's stem cells. And our body's stem cells are designed to repair and regenerate. And typically when you're a kid, you've got all your stem cells working. I mean, they should, but what they have found with these kids with issues, their stem cells aren't working like they should. They're just not doing their job, because stem cells are supposed to turn into any other cell in the body that's needed to repair and regenerate. So I don't know if you guys know this, but by the time you're in your 30s, 50% of your stem cells have gone dormant. And by the time you're in your 60s, there's basically no stem cell activity. So nothing's regenerating and repairing, and that's why you age and kind of go downhill so quickly, at that point. So got the patch, put it on her, didn't really know what to expect, but I was just watching her. And on day 19, something very major changed. So 2 days a week, she has a tutor, and this was one of her days. And on this day, I have to give her ADHD med, or there's no way she can do it. She can't sit still that long. So on that day, I had her pill. I was looking for her, and I usually find her outside, run her around. We've got animals, and she's not ready. And then we start fighting, and I'm cracking the whip. Get in there. You got to get your hair brushed. Get ready. But this particular day, I found her sitting at the table. She had all her books spread out. She had made herself a drink, made herself a snack, and she was reading a book. And it just stopped me dead in my tracks, because not one of those things has ever happened. Like, she doesn't get her stuff out. She doesn't fix herself anything. And she has most certainly never sat down to read a book. Okay?
Wait,
now,
she could read? Okay.
She can read, and she's not a bad reader, but she won't do it on her own. She'll only do it if you're reading with her and you're making her read. But she has never picked up a book to read it on her own.
So at what grade level do you feel like she reads at?
Yeah, she reads at about a 3rd grade level.
Okay.
So that's not bad.
No, that's not
bad.
bad.
Reading was like her best subject. Now, she could not comprehend what she read. She could read a whole page fairly well, but then she couldn't tell you what she read because the processing wasn't there. Okay. So I just stopped there. Now she's reading. She doesn't know that I'm looking at her. What I noticed was that her body was perfectly still. I told you she constantly moved and twitched, and she was just perfectly still reading a book. And I just went, whoa, to myself. And I said, I'm not giving her the ADD med this morning, and I'm not going to say anything to the tutor, and I'm just going to see if he says anything, right? And so he came, they did their thing. He leaves, and before he drives away, he texts me, and he told me they had an amazing day. Jalen's focus was excellent. She was very willing to do new things. I mean, he went on, and this man had never given me feedback before. This was the first time he felt compelled to like let me know because it was so different. So when he came back a couple days later, I'm like, hey, she didn't have her med on Tuesday. And he's like, what do you mean? And so I told him about the patches. And he goes, I'm going to do a math test. And I'm like, yes, please, let's compare something, right? And so prior to that, the best she had ever done was 51 out of 100. That day she got 100 out of 100. And he told me her speed was greatly increased. So hey, Jalen never had another ADHD med after that. That was February.
So where you got these patches from?
Yeah, so I mean, it's a 20-year-old company. Next year there is 20 years. It's very affordable. Okay, there are these little patches. They're like $99 a month. I mean, you know, comparatively speaking, very affordable, right? For what they do. But yeah.
Wait, there's drugs in them?
There are no drugs. They're non-transdermal. There's nothing going into your body. It is simply, grab one.
They're absorbing sun?
Let's see. There we go. Can you see that?
We can see that.
Barely. It looked like a Band-Aid.
It looks like a Band-Aid. Yeah, and it just fits on like this.
Okay.
But how you know it's working?
Well, I know it's working because of the changes in our bodies. So I didn't even get into this, but I have had chronic, I told you, I started a health journey trying to help myself in my early 20s. I'm almost 60. And last year I had really gone downhill. Like after COVID, like all the stuff that normally helped me just wasn't helping. And it's really beginning to get very concerned about, because I'm a single mom now and very concerned, like, you know, something happens to me and I can't make this work. What are we going to do, you know? And so I had the patch on too. I got it for Jalen, but I've slapped one on myself too. I've had major turnaround, major. Yeah, I mean, these chronic issues I've had since my early 20s, they have resolved themselves. Because your stem cells, that's what they do. That's why people go out of the country and pay that kind of money. That's what stem cells do. And these patches are just activating your own body stem cells. Yeah, truly, there's nothing going into your body. There are no drugs. So there are no drug interactions. And I basically get to see medically impossible things happen on a daily basis. I'm not kidding you.
So what if you stop using them? Then what happens?
Well, so
you go back to normal?
You won't reverse back to where you started. I mean, the repair has taken place, the regeneration has taken place, but if you stop wearing the patches, it's just going to reverse again, and it's going to start going down again. So as you age, you know, the environment and life is taking its toll on your body, and your body's not producing the same amount of chemicals and hormones and all the growth stuff that it did when we were young. And the patches are actually reversing that. Yeah. So, I mean, and we have over 90 clinical studies proving that. And the guy's got 150 patents on these products. So naturally, the kids around us, so I have a cousin that's severely autistic. He's like my fifth cousin. He's a teenager. And then, you know, friends around us, family, you know, friends, all these kids. I put everybody on the patches. Same kind of life-changing results with every one of these kids. And so that's why, you know, it's my mission to at least let parents know, you know, it's out there. Look at it. You know, check it out. At least give them the opportunity. Jalen hasn't been on any ADHD med, you know, since then. And, so I just got the most amazing report just last Thursday. Another assessment was done, and Jalen actually tested normal in 2 different brain functioning areas for a 16-year-old. I was absolutely shocked. Prior to that, she wouldn't even register. Nothing would register because she couldn't do a 16-year-old test, right? Not at all. But everything registered, and 2 of the most important functions registered in the normal range, her verbal processing and her processing speed. So when this turnaround happened with Jalen, I immediately went to the studies. I'm like, what's happening? What in the world, right? And I found these brain mapping studies that are, were on the website. And it shows the brain, images prior to patching, 24 hours after patching, 48 hours and 72 hours, and like that for like 6 weeks. And you see the brain completely shifting. In the beginning, it's color, and it should be like even colors, but it's like 90% red. And then as they're taking pictures and time's going on, you see the shift and you see the colors balance out. It's actually balancing the brain. And so I don't have to have eyes on her all the time anymore. The other day I had to leave early before, her therapist was getting here. She was by herself for like an hour. I mean, she did in my home for an hour. So, it's
by herself?
By herself. Yeah. She's got a phone so she can, let me know if there's a problem, but we've been kind of like giving her more and more time by herself so she gets comfortable with that, but she's making good choices now. She's processing in ways she couldn't before. She's learning the piano.
So, So is she
that's
behaving like a 16-year-old or is she still behaving like a kindergarten?
In between. So she's not at 16 yet. She's not that mature, but she's matured probably all the way up to like maybe she acts more like a 13, 14-year-old now. And we're talking.
But she looks 12, you said?
Like about 13, 14.
Okay.
Right?
I don't know.
That's a big change.
Okay.
In the matter of months. I mean,
Send us some of these patches then. Send us some.
I would love to.
Use some of these.
Yeah.
You would try some?
You guys have, but
I would definitely love for you to tell us the name. Like, I would definitely love to do my own research on it. I'm very happy that it's working for you and Jalen. Like, the progress that you said she's been making is like amazing. Yeah, I would love to do my own research on it. It's like your.
Well, I'll give you. I put a website together, and everything's there. The studies, the doctors talking, the information. But you guys know that when you go out in the sun, your body makes vitamin D. You've heard that the sun gives you vitamin D. Okay, so it's the same concept. It's a wavelength from the sun that is elevating a peptide under your skin, and it's telling your body to produce vitamin D. It also the sun has a different wavelength that elevates melanin, so people get suntans. And it's not everybody, but some people are born with beautiful tans. It's the same process. It's called photobiomodulation. So it's just your body's. These patches are reflecting your own body's light back under your skin and elevating the peptides. So it's almost like futuristic medicine, but it's a type of phototherapy.
But what's so special about the patches, though?
Pardon me?
Like, what's so special about the patches that they got such magical powers? Like, what's in it?
Well, there's nothing in it. It's just reflecting a wavelength of your own light back under your skin. That's what's special. I'll give you my website, and you look it up, and there's a little video, like a 2-minute video, and you'll understand that quickly how this works. It's so simple. There's nothing going into your body.
Oh,
But,
so you sell them on your website, you're saying?
Well, they are available. So these patches are only available. You're not going to find them in a store, or doctors aren't going to be telling you about them. You can tell that if you saw these in the store, you wouldn't know what they were, right? It's direct consumer to consumer, right? I had to get them from somebody who had been, using them and who had signed up with the company. And anybody, you guys you'd have to get them through somebody that was using them as well, and that's how it works. So when all these people saw what was going on with my daughter and myself, and the next person I got on was my cousin who was on his deathbed with Agent Orange leukemia from Vietnam.
Wow.
I said, Robert, you have nothing to lose. And he's like, Deana, send me what you got, right? And so he's like the poster child for this. I'm not kidding you. He's out. You won't even believe me. That's a big problem I have. People go, oh yeah, it sounds too good to be true. But I'm telling you, I am not lying to you. I am not going through this for nothing. Robert got out of his bed. Robert got rid of his wheelchair. His cancer numbers began to go down. He was preparing to die. He got rid of all his cattle. He got all his cattle back. He's got his life back. That's my cousin. And so when people, everybody around us saw these things going on, I just started getting these calls. Like, send me some, I want some. And the next thing I knew, I was doing this. That's what I've been doing all year. And I've been having the time of my life.
Nice.
So all these years, I've been into health and nutrition, and there just wasn't a whole lot that would do a whole lot for people. But this is doing a whole lot for everybody.
Okay, cool. So we're getting towards the last few minutes of the show. So if you could share something with the audience that will leave a long-lasting impact on them, what would be the advice that you would share with them from the journey that you have experienced thus far?
Thank you. Well, first of all, I would say you're your child's advocate. Never give up hope. Keep trying new things, keep working with them, keep believing, keep trusting, keep faith, but also enjoy the journey and enjoy your child where they are. Don't get so focused on the change that you hope that takes place that you don't enjoy your child and all their gifts and blessings and strengths right now, right? And I wish I could go back and tell myself that, early on, because I was so focused. I was the mom that was super focused. We were going to get to the bottom of this, right? And I didn't spend enough time just really enjoying the journey with her. And so that would be my advice for all parents, of typical kids and all kids. You guys just have no idea. You're going to blink and your kids are going to be out the door.
Absolutely.
And I'm not kidding you. It's going to be that fast. It's going to blow your mind. So enjoy them. They're such gifts. They're so valuable. And tell your kids they're valuable. Tell them. Speak into their little hearts and love them, right?
Yeah.
That would be what I would say.
Absolutely.
What about you, Aunt? What's your closing thought?
No, I mean, it was inspiring and insightful to hear Deana's story. Appreciate the journey you're going through with Jalen. I hope you continue to find strength and, conviction through this journey. Your passion and happiness, though, is really what makes it so kind of satisfying. I don't think it could be satisfying in any way that you're going through what you're going through, and I know it's a challenge every day, but the fact that you're able to smile and go through things daily and still wake up the next day, it's inspiring for me and a whole lot of people. So that's what I'm taking. That's what I'm taking from the story today. Is no matter how difficult or how hard things get, you have to always keep fighting. And no matter how much the world tells you that the door is closed, keep the hope, because one day that door can be opened. The patch is working for you, and I really love that. I hope people go on the website, look into it. Maybe it'll work for them as well. So it's keep the hope. The door is never really closed.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. Thank you, Anthony. Can I give you my website?
Yes,
absolutely, please.
Can I? Okay, it's JAEvision, JAEvision.com. JAEvision.com, after my daughter
After Jalen, absolutely.
You guys have been great. I feel like you're my buddies now. I hope we stay in touch. I can follow you.
No, of course, yeah. We on Instagram, and for those that want to follow us on Instagram, we're on Instagram at The Real Word Ministries Inc. On Instagram, that's at The Real Word Ministries Inc. on Instagram, or www.facebook.com/The Real Word 7, The Real Word 7, like the number 7 on the back of Mike Vick jersey. And also check us out on our official website. That's www.therealwordministriesinc.org, therealwordministriesinc.org, or everywhere you can find podcasts. That's Apple, Spotify, YouTube, Soundcloud, and Pandora. The Real Word Podcast, and also youtube.com/The Real Word TV. One word, The Real Word TV on YouTube. So thank you all for joining us today. My closing thought is that together we could all come together, share ideas, share thoughts, share events and moments in life that we all from different backgrounds might, even though our backgrounds might be different, but our experiences are the same because we're all living life. And life has taught me one thing, that we all experience happiness, we all experience pain, we all go through trials and tribulations, we all experience hurt, but we all experience love, and it's all part of life. So we thank you all for joining us. Welcome to The Real Word. Good night, and God bless. So before we close out, we're going to close out with a prayer, since Diane, you're our guest, so you can pray. So we close out.
Yes, you cut out a little bit. Did you just ask me to pray?
Yeah, you heard me.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, Father, we just thank you for this time together. I know that it was ordained, and everybody that's listening, Father, is listening for a reason. I thank you, Father, that you have a plan for everybody here, all the audience, and for these two great guys, and they're doing a great work for you, Father. I just ask for your blessing upon everyone listening, Father, that they would feel hope rise up in them, Lord, that they would feel drawn to you and encouraged this day, and that everyone would just realize that these kids they're gifts, Father, they're gifts from you, and just help us all, Lord. None of us can do this without you. We just thank you for everything, Lord, in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. So we thank you all for joining us. Good night and God bless. Thank you.
It's the real word. It's the real word. It's the real